The CEO's wife, the 50-foot swing. For years, she played the perfect corporate companion, quietly backing her ambitious husband as he built his empire. But tonight, he arrived at the family board dinner with his pregnant mistress, smug and confident in his dominion. He never expected his trophy wife to reveal a truth that would shatter his world completely. Don't forget to subscribe and tell us your location in the comments while you watch. The Empire's coronation. The Zenith Grand Hotel pierced the city skyline, a gleaming monolith of glass and steel reflecting the last rays of the setting sun, bathing the arriving guests in a golden hue. Soaring 62 stories, it was the flagship of Vaughn Global Industries, a hotel group that had successfully diversified into real estate, tech, and international projection over 3 generations. On the 58th floor, in the exclusive banquet hall dubbed the Crown, Rebecca Vaughn moved with calculated grace. At 42, she possessed a refined elegance, honed by 2 decades at the side of Marcus Vaughn. Her navy dress was impeccable, but unassuming. Her diamond jewelry, simple yet flawless. To the onlookers, she was the embodiment of their expectation, the ideal corporate spouse. "The chandelier, Mr. Davies," Rebecca murmured, pointing upward. "Mr. Vaughn prefers a softer light for this kind of gathering, a subtle, almost amber tone." The hotel manager nodded respectfully. "Of course, Madame Vaughn. And the climate control? Exactly 72 degrees Fahrenheit, 22 C. When under pressure, Marcus tended to grow irritable, especially in strategic meetings. Surveying the impeccably set table, Rebecca felt the familiar weight of the evening. The annual Vaughn Global Family Summit was more than just a dinner. It was theater, politics, and corporate warfare disguised as a convivial meal. Every detail mattered. Her thoughts were interrupted by her daughter, Sophia Vaughn. The 19-year-old strode into the room, tall and striking, possessing her father's confidence and her mother's refined features. She went straight to Rebecca for a cheek kiss. "Everything looks perfect as usual, Mom." Samuel, her twin brother, followed, his demeanor quieter, but no less observant. If Sophia inherited her father's outward charisma, Samuel possessed a quiet intensity that reminded Rebecca of her own father. "The council members are arriving," Samuel announced, adjusting his tie. "Just got the call from Grandpa's driver." "Thank you, Sam. Remember our conversation. Polite, charming, but do not engage on business matters." Samuel gave his mother a knowing smile. "Still got it. Dad plays to his audience, and we enjoy playing the devoted family." Sophia rolled her eyes. "Thrilling." Rebecca's gaze held hers. "Tonight is highly significant." Sophia straightened slightly at her mother's tone. "Is there ever a night that isn't?" "Everything is precisely as it should be," Rebecca said, gently touching Sophia's cheek. "I need you to help me greet Eleanor when she arrives. You know how particular your grandmother is about these occasions." As if summoned, Eleanor Vaughn appeared. At 76, Marcus's mother remained a formidable presence. Silver-haired and regal, she was the widow of Richard Vaughn, the man who had transformed the original hotel into a global brand. Rebecca greeted Eleanor with a subtle gesture, accepting the implicit approval of the room's decor, yet sensing her annoyance about something else. Eleanor checked her platinum watch. "Let me guess, my son is late for another dinner." "An unavoidable meeting, Eleanor," Rebecca offered smoothly. Eleanor sighed. Richard was never late, not once. Punctuality is respect, and respect is currency in business. She leaned closer. "You're giving him too much rope, my dear." Rebecca's smile remained serene. "We all have our own management styles, Eleanor." The elder woman studied her daughter-in-law's face before patting her hand, surprisingly gently. "Yes, my dear, you do. You certainly do." The uninvited guest, over the next 30 minutes, the Crown filled with the power players of Vaughn Global. The head of the tech division arrived with his spouse. Then came the chief legal officer and the directors of global development and finance. Harold Envernalis, the venerable chairman of the board, arrived with his signature red pocket square and booming laugh, a contemporary of Richard. Each person was greeted individually by Rebecca, who remembered their children's names, favorite dishes, and talking points. By 7:15 p.m., 14 people were seated, 2 chairs conspicuously empty. Marcus is at the head, and one undefined spot. At 7:20 p.m., Rebecca gave the team a discreet nod. "Let's start the aperitifs." Eleanor, seated near the head of the table, murmured, "Marcus would prefer we start without him. He always did have a flair for the dramatic. Even as a boy, it wasn't enough to enter a room. He had to make an entrance." Rebecca smiled calmly over her sparkling water. Tonight will be no exception. Precisely then, the double doors of the private salon burst open. Marcus Vaughn finally arrived, 40 minutes late. At 45, he was still an imposing figure, with the casual confidence of a man used to turning heads. His tailored suit and perfectly knotted tie spoke of quiet luxury, but it wasn't his appearance that silenced the room. It was her. She was beautiful, perhaps 28 or 29, with dark, lustrous hair and soft features. The sleek red dress she wore accentuated her figure and made one thing impossible to miss. She was visibly 5 months pregnant. "Good evening, everyone," Marcus's voice boomed confidently into the tense space. "Apologies for the delay." He paused, introducing Vanessa Chen, Director of Special Projects for the Asian markets. Then, his eyes settling briefly on Rebecca, who remained motionless at the table. A slight, practiced smile curved the corner of his mouth as he delivered the line he had clearly rehearsed. "And the mother of my child, the future heir of Vaughn Global Industries." Interrogation and complicity. A total silence descended. All eyes in the room darted between Marcus and Rebecca, waiting for the explosion. Eleanor's hand gripped her water glass tightly, while the twins exchanged a subtle, almost imperceptible glance. Marcus pressed on, filling the void. "I understand this is a surprise, but in business, you must adapt to new realities, and Vaughn Global is securing its long-term future." Vanessa's smile was slight and strained beside him, clearly uncomfortable with the atmosphere. Yet, the way Marcus held her arm protectively showed her complete faith in him. Her free hand rested automatically on her burgeoning abdomen in a protective gesture. The room held its breath, waiting for Rebecca's reaction. Instead of tears or fury, Rebecca rose with practiced grace and walked toward the couple. Her expression showed only polite interest as she extended a hand to Vanessa. "Miss Chen, it is a pleasure to have you at our family summit," she said, her voice smooth and steady. "Please, take a seat next to me here. The place of honor reserved for our distinguished guest." Vanessa took Rebecca's hand, her eyes wide with astonishment. "Thank you, Mrs. Vaughn. I don't know what to say. You are so kind." Rebecca turned to the rigid waiters. "We start now. Bring Mr. Vaughn's favorite Cabernet Sauvignon, please." As she guided Vanessa to the seat next to her, Marcus stood, clearly bewildered. This was not the script. He watched his wife subtly narrow her eyes as she settled his mistress, the seasoned hostess taking control. Vanessa whispered to Marcus, "I told you she'd be angry, but she seems fine." Marcus forced a tight smile, the tension in his jaw evident. "She's in shock. It will hit her later." Across the table, Eleanor and Rebecca exchanged a subtle, private look. The twins remained utterly impassive. Yet those who knew them would have caught the spark of shared excitement in their eyes. What do you think? Is Rebecca truly in shock, or is this calculated? And what does the twins' reaction tell you about the dynamic in this perfect family? Tell us in the comments. As the first course was served, Rebecca skillfully dominated the conversation. engaging Vanessa about her background and professional expertise. To many people's surprise, Vanessa proved to be an intelligent and articulate expert in global business, particularly the burgeoning high-end market in China. "The potential you saw in Shanghai for Vaughn Global is immense," Vanessa said, visibly relaxing under Rebecca's genuine interest. "The high-end hotel sector there is saturated, but no one has successfully integrated Western standards with genuine, localized Chinese cultural elements." Rebecca nodded thoughtfully. "That is precisely what Marcus has been trying to convey to the board. Harold, you were the one who questioned the feasibility of the Shanghai expansion last quarter." Harold Envernales, the board chairman, cleared his throat awkwardly. "Yes, the projections were positive, but it lacked a clear distinguishing factor." Vanessa sat up straighter. "The key is understanding that Chinese clients don't want a Western hotel with Chinese decorations. They want a luxury experience that honors their cultural values, with the efficiency and polish of a Western brand." As Vanessa continued to detail her vision, Marcus looked increasingly uncomfortable. The evening was not going as he had planned. Rebecca was not shamed. She was engaged in a professional dialogue with his partner, as if they were colleagues. By the time the main course was served, Vanessa had impressed many at the table with her market command. Rebecca had deftly controlled the narrative, pushing Vanessa's professional value to the forefront, sidelining the controversy of her presence. "And where did you study, Miss Chen?" "Harvard Business School, Mrs. Vaughn. I was fortunate to be a global Hamilton scholar." Eleanor's eyebrows arched. Lightly. "Remarkable. Very competitive." Marcus interjected. "Vanessa graduated top of her class. That is why I personally selected her for the Asian Growth Initiative." As Vanessa was served roasted vegetables, Rebecca looked at her. "And how long have you been with Vaughn Global?" Vanessa hesitated, glancing at Marcus. "Almost 2 years." Rebecca nodded. "And your connection to Marcus?" Silence fell again. Marcus slammed his wine glass down a little too hard. "Perhaps, Rebecca, this isn't the forum." Vanessa, to everyone's surprise, interrupted him calmly. "It's fine. We have been together for approximately 14 months. I realize this is unconventional, Mrs. Vaughn, and I appreciate your need for direct questions." Rebecca's smile was genuine. "Thank you for your candor, Vanessa. Please call me Rebecca." As the main courses were cleared, Rebecca remained perfectly composed. There was nothing in her demeanor to suggest her husband had just publicly humiliated her with his pregnant mistress. She clearly held the power in the room. Marcus watched her, his suspicion growing. This was not the Rebecca he knew. He thought he knew the quiet, somewhat naive woman who had stood beside him for 15 years, grateful for the Vaughn name and the lifestyle it provided. But tonight, something was different, and for the first time in a long time, Marcus was deeply uncertain about what would happen next. The revelation. As the waiters discreetly cleared the main course plates, Marcus sought to regain control. He gently tapped his knife against his glass, drawing all eyes to him. "As we were discussing the future of Vaughn Global," he began with a confident smile, "I think this is the perfect time to share some of the shifts I've been orchestrating." He spoke directly to Harold Envernales and the board, addressing the concern over next year's growth projections. "With our new Singapore ventures and the strategic partnership Vanessa has been securing in Shanghai, we are poised for the most aggressive expansion in the company's history." He gestured informally toward Vanessa. "Beyond our personal relationship, Vanessa's ties to the GEO Group will open doors that have been closed to Western firms for too long." Vanessa shifted uncomfortably, a flicker of doubt crossing her face before she regained her composure. Marcus continued, "I have been reviewing the preliminary filings to establish Vaughn Asia, a new subsidiary that will oversee all Pacific operations. The paperwork should be ready for the board's review next week, but I wanted to give you a preview of—" Rebecca gently stopped him, placing her glass down. "Before we discuss corporate projections, Marcus, tell me about your family projections." The question caught him completely off guard. "My family?" Rebecca nodded, her voice sharp and steady. "Vanessa has announced she is carrying the future heir of Vaughn Global. I want to know your plan for the twins, our children, right now and of course for our marriage." A palpable discomfort settled over the room. Sophia looked at her father with unconcealed disdain. Samuel stared at the tablecloth. Marcus cleared his throat, clearly agitated. "Obviously, this is a difficult personal situation that will require adjustments for all involved. I intended to discuss this privately with you, Rebecca. But since you bring it up," he straightened in his chair, "I have instructed our attorneys to draw up the necessary divorce papers. You'll find the settlement extremely generous." A few board members exchanged uncomfortable glances. "And the twins?" Rebecca pressed. "You mentioned a possible heir. What does this mean for Sophia and Samuel's role in the company?" Marcus waved a dismissive hand. "Rebecca, they're 19. They have plenty of time before executive responsibilities. Samuel is constantly tinkering with his environmental projects, and Sophia—" He looked at his daughter, noting the severity in her expression. "Sophia has shown no real commitment to the firm, preferring to enjoy its benefits." Sophia's knuckles were white around her glass, but she remained silent. Rebecca nodded, processing. "And Vanessa will be my replacement in company events. As the mother of the future heir?" Vanessa's discomfort was mounting. "Oh, Rebecca, I want you to know this was never my intention." "It is quite all right, Vanessa," Rebecca interjected smoothly. "I am not blaming you. I am trying to understand the new structure Marcus has devised for the group." Marcus leaned forward. "Rebecca, there's no need to make this unpleasant. You've been an excellent Mrs. Vaughn. The settlement agreement will ensure you enjoy a superb quality of life. Perhaps that villa in Tuscany you always loved." Rebecca studied him in complete silence for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she smiled. It was not the gentle smile of a gracious hostess, but something else, something Marcus couldn't decipher. "Such foresight, Marcus. Before we delve into Italian real estate, does anyone care for dessert?" She gestured to the service staff. "I've arranged for Chef Pascal's famous chocolate soufflé. Harold, isn't that your favorite?" The board chairman nodded with palpable relief at the shift in topic. "It is, Rebecca. Nobody does it better than Pascal, the real chess player." During the dessert service, Rebecca steered the conversation back to innocuous topics. Samuel's conservation project, Sophia's photography exhibition, and Eleanor's charity work. All the while, Marcus watched his wife with increasing annoyance. He expected her to be distraught, not presiding over a civilized dinner. As the soufflés, each perfectly risen in its individual ramekin, arrived, Rebecca turned her attention back to Vanessa. "Vanessa, has Marcus shown you the Vaughn family albums?" she asked. "The story of the company." Vanessa shook her head. "Not yet. He mentioned his father and grandfather, of course." Rebecca nodded. "The men of the Vaughn family have always been fiercely proud of their generational legacy. Richard, Marcus's father, was deeply concerned about the continuity of the firm." Marcus slammed his spoon on the table. "I don't think anyone needs a family history lesson with dessert, Rebecca. Finish the story. Can we please focus on the future instead of past fables?" It was Eleanor, after a long silence, who spoke up. "On the contrary, I think it is vital that Vanessa fully understands the family she is joining, especially as the mother of a prospective heir," Rebecca continued, ignoring Marcus's obvious irritation. "Richard was fascinating, conservative in many ways, yet unexpectedly progressive in others. He strongly believed in meritocracy within the family." Harold and Vernalis nodded. "Indeed. Richard insisted that blood alone didn't earn you leadership. You had to prove you were worthy of the Vaughn name." Rebecca smiled. "Exactly. And when he retired, he was also quite creative in structuring the company. Marcus, intrigued by something in her tone, stared at her. What do you mean? Richard saw the ruin of too many family businesses due to infighting and poor succession planning, Rebecca explained. He was determined that Vaughn Global wouldn't suffer the same fate. Marcus, clearly exasperated, cut her off. He transferred the company to me, his only heir. Conclude the story. Can we please focus on the future instead of past fables? Rebecca's smile did not waver. That is precisely the point, Marcus. You must understand our history to move forward. She then addressed the table. 15 years ago, when Marcus and I married, Richard was the CEO. 6 months later, Marcus stepped down and has since run the company as if he were the sole, rightful heir. Geraldo shifted uncomfortably. Eleanor's face was utterly neutral. He did, Marcus stated coldly. My father retired and handed me the reins. Everyone at this table knows that. Not precisely, Rebecca corrected, her tone no longer merely that of a hostess. It had shifted. Richard transferred his shares. However, the governance structure he put in place was meticulous. Calmly, she reached into her purse and extracted a refined silver case. From it, she took a single folded document. I have a copy here, should anyone care to examine it. Marcus stared at her, incredulous. What is that? The trust Richard established when he reorganized the company, Rebecca answered. It allocates 57% of the voting shares to a trust managed by the spouse of the CEO. The ensuing silence was absolute. Finally, Marcus said, his voice clipped. That is unreachable. I have overseen those operations for 15 years. You voted as my proxy, Rebecca gently corrected. By my consent. I have granted that proxy for every board meeting, every significant decision. Harold, check the documents. You will find my signature on every authorization since Richard's retirement. The chairman's face paled. After a moment, he nodded. I always ignored that document. It seemed like standard boilerplate for the CEO's wife. Marcus's face was livid. This is preposterous. The intent was clearly for me to run the company. It was Eleanor who spoke now, her voice steady. Richard's intent was clear. He observed your conduct with your first wife. He was determined that your second marriage would be a genuine partnership, at least in business terms. Marcus stared at his mother in disbelief. You knew! Eleanor nodded calmly. I knew. Richard ensured you wouldn't make the same mistakes. He felt that a man who could not honor his marriage was not fit for total control of the family legacy. Vanessa's confusion was mounting. What are you talking about, Marcus? You told me your first marriage ended amicably. Sophia let out a short, harsh laugh, covering it instantly with a strained cough. Marcus exclaimed, This is insane. Rebecca has always been excluded from company matters, attending only events and organizing dinners. Rebecca openly disagreed. That was the arrangement. You craved the spotlight. I preferred to observe from the shadows. For 15 years, I have meticulously reviewed every report, every proposal, every financial statement. The impact of the revelation hit the table like a physical projectile. Samuel nodded silently, confirming the truth. My mother has a fully equipped office at home. I've watched her working there since I was a child. She never spoke ill of you, if that's what you're thinking. She just made sure Sophia and I understood the business, every side of it, not just yours. Marcus turned back to Rebecca, his composure finally starting to crumble. What are you trying to achieve? Are you using this technicality to intimidate me? Because you're angry about Vanessa? Rebecca's intensity softened slightly. Vanessa is not the issue, Marcus. Or at least not entirely. The issue is the future of the company, and your manipulation of Vaughn Global's assets over the last 7 months. She nodded to her associate, who was waiting discreetly by the door. The associate approached, carrying several leather briefcases, which she distributed among the guests. What is this? Marcus demanded, not unfolding his own. Accounting documents, Rebecca said calmly. Detailed records of how you've moved Vaughn assets into shell companies in Singapore, companies you own solely, excluded from Vaughn Global. Vanessa's hand flew to her mouth. Singapore? The location you cited as the base for our new expansion? Her eyes were wide as she looked at Marcus. You told me the board had approved all of that. Harold Envernales was peering at the papers he'd pulled from his case, his worry growing. These transactions were never reported to the board, he said, looking up at Marcus. Is this a misappropriation? Of course not, Marcus jumped in. It's a reorganization to streamline our tax situation and international processing. Is it? Rebecca inquired. What an interesting definition of reorganization. Vanessa watched him, horrified. You told me we were building something genuine, a project for our son's future. That is what we are doing, Marcus insisted, trying to grab her hand. Vanessa pulled away. Then why does this filing show the Singapore company registered solely in your name? Not mine, and certainly not Vaughn Global's. A steady murmur filled the room as the board members scanned the documents. Suddenly, Marcus stood up, his chair scraping loudly on the floor. This is a setup. Rebecca is letting jealousy manipulate this entire situation. He looked around the table. Rebecca said calmly, The documents come directly from our financial partners in Singapore. I have verified their authenticity with 3 independent forensic accountants. Our legal department holds the originals. She addressed the board. An emergency board meeting is convened for tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, ladies and gentlemen. I suggest you verify everything before then. Marcus looked at her in disbelief. You would actually do this? You would destroy everything for a bruised ego? Rebecca showed genuine emotion for the first time that night. It wasn't anger, but weary disappointment. I am safeguarding what your father and grandfather built, Marcus, and what our children, and now Vanessa's child, are justly due to inherit. She looked at Vanessa, her expression softening again. You may use the penthouse apartment temporarily, Marcus. Vanessa will require a comfortable space given her condition. Vanessa looked up, startled by the direct address. Rebecca continued, speaking directly to her. I don't blame you. He's very persuasive. If you need anything for the baby, please call me. Marcus started to reply, but Vanessa abruptly stopped him, pulling her hand away and creating distance between them. Her voice trembled. You told me your wife was just a showpiece, that she didn't do anything important in the company. You told me we were building this for our baby. She looked at Rebecca. I knew nothing about this, about you. Rebecca responded with an unexpected sense of understanding. Very few people did. That was the point. The dinner ended in complete chaos. Board members were on their phones, presumably consulting their lawyers. Eleanor sat in her chair, looking at her son with profound disappointment. The twins were silent, but Sophia barely contained the joy in her eyes at the meticulous breakdown of her father's universe. In the eye of the storm, Rebecca remained perfectly calm, as she had since Marcus walked in with Vanessa. But on closer inspection, her serenity wasn't shock or denial. It was the certainty of a person who had spent a very long time preparing for this moment. The game was over. Rebecca Vaughn, the quiet partner, had finally chosen to take the reins. Epilogue. The legacy. 3 months passed with the slow, deliberate rhythm of changing seasons. The Zenith Grand Hotel still stood as a beacon on the skyline, but inside, subtle yet profound shifts were underway. On the 62nd floor, the presidential suite was now renamed the Vaughn Legacy Suite. Rebecca hosted an intimate gathering there. Under her direction, the space had been redesigned, retaining its elegance but adding a warmer, more approachable atmosphere, featuring local artists instead of the somber ancestral portraits Marcus preferred. Sophia and Samuel moved easily among the guests, no longer spectators in their father's business, but active collaborators in their mother's vision for the future. Vanessa Chen arrived promptly for the lunch appointment. She looked tired, but composed. She was dressed in professional, understated maternity wear instead of her cocktail dress. "Thank you for having me," she said, sitting down at Rebecca's private dining table. "I wasn't sure you would want to see me after everything." Rebecca poured tea for both of them. "I said my piece last night. My issue is with Marcus, not you." Vanessa looked at her intently. "Marcus called this morning. He wants me to move into the penthouse with him. He says this is temporary, that his lawyers will fix this, and he will be back in control soon." "And what do you think?" Rebecca asked, her tone neutral. "I think he's delusional," Vanessa said frankly. "He stole from his own company. He lied to everyone, including me." She placed a protective hand on her abdomen. "I won't raise my son with a man who has no ethical compass." Rebecca nodded. "You've decided what you will do on his behalf." "That's one of the reasons I wanted to see you," Vanessa admitted. "I have an offer from the Geo Group in Hong Kong, a real job matching my actual experience. Victoria Gia called me this morning." "Victoria moves fast," Rebecca smiled faintly. "It's an excellent opportunity. Geo is one of our strongest partners." "I'd have to leave the country," Vanessa said. "Take Marcus's son far away." Rebecca considered it. "Marcus no longer has the authority to dictate your choices. If you are concerned about the family connection, we can arrange agreements. My children should know their half-brother, regardless of the circumstances." Vanessa's eyes widened. "You would truly want that?" "Children should not pay the price for their parents' mistakes," Rebecca affirmed. "Sophia and Samuel understand that too." Tears filled Vanessa's eyes. "Rebecca, I don't understand you. You should hate me." Rebecca reached out and gently touched her hand. Would hate change anything? Would resentment undo what was done? Or improve what is to come? As Vanessa settled into her Hong Kong role, she didn't cut ties with Vaughn Global. Instead, she became instrumental in forging a partnership between the Geo Group and Vaughn's Asian division, the genuine version of the expansion Marcus had used as a cover for his deceit. 3 months after the disastrous dinner, the crown was filled once more. Harold and Vernalis stepped forward, carrying an official folder. "As chairman of the board, it is my privilege to formalize this appointment. Effective immediately, Rebecca Vaughn is permanently appointed Chief Executive Officer of Vaughn Global Industries, shedding her interim status." The room erupted in applause. "I accept this commitment with humility and resolve," Rebecca said once the applause subsided. "Leadership is not about one person. It is about establishing a foundation that reflects our values and ensures our long-term sustainability." She turned to her children. "Sophia and Samuel, when you come of age, leadership opportunities will be available. You will earn them. The Vaughn legacy is bought with hard work, integrity, and foresight." Then she turned to Vanessa, 8 months pregnant and radiant, with a confidence born of self-reliance. "The initial trust deed ensures equal rights for all blood heirs of the Vaughn family. Your son, should he choose it, will have the same opportunities as Sophia and Samuel." The family was expanding on its own terms. Stepping back, Rebecca watched her children talking with Vanessa, Samuel discussing a technical point with Geraldo. The future of Vaughn Global was being sketched right there, in those connections, in those alliances built on respect, not obligation. Rebecca smiled subtly, looking at the city below. For too long, this empire has been led by men who felt entitled to power by birthright. For the first time, it would be steered by a person who earned that power through patience, cunning, and an unwavering commitment to what truly mattered. She hadn't taken the empire through a coup, but through a revelation. And Rebecca Vaughn was ready to lead it into a future built on foundations stronger than her husband had ever imagined. The power was hers, and with it, the obligation. Did you love this story? Hit like and subscribe for more compelling tales of power, betrayal, and redemption. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Turn on notifications so you don't miss our next episode. The CEO's Wife. the 50th the first test of leadership. 3 weeks into her permanent CEO tenure, as the family was preparing for Vanessa's return to Hong Kong and the impending birth of the baby, Rebecca faced her first true crisis that tested the solidity of her new regime. The crisis didn't come from Marcos or the board. It came from the market. Kensington Holdings, a major competitor in the European luxury hotel sector, announced a hostile takeover bid for Vaughan Global's entire European portfolio. The timing was clearly strategic, exploiting the recent executive upheaval. The news hit the markets like a shockwave. In the 53rd floor conference room, the board gathered again, their faces etched with renewed stress. "They know we're vulnerable, Rebecca," Harold Envernales stated, pacing the room. "Kensington is offering a premium on assets, but they're clearly looking to strip the best properties and dissolve the rest. This is exactly the kind of mess Richard protected us from." Victoria Gia, the young board member, looked at the detailed presentation on the screen. "Their offer undervalues the Vaughan Legacy brand premium, but legally, it's a tempting proposal for shareholders looking for a quick exit." Rebecca, calm in her gray power suit, stood at the head of the table. "They misunderstand the nature of our company. Vaughan Global is not a collection of assets. It is a continuity. They believe our current leadership is a weakness. We will prove it is our greatest strength." She turned to David Chen. "David, what are the legal implications of the Legacy Trust in a hostile takeover situation?" "The trust holds 51% of the voting shares, Rebecca. Your authority to decline the offer is absolute. However, the optics, declining a lucrative offer amid a leadership change, will fuel shareholder anxiety. We need a counter-strategy, and we need it yesterday." Rebecca gestured to the financial analysts. "Present the counter-proposal." For the next hour, Rebecca demonstrated the quiet mastery she had cultivated for 15 years. She didn't just refuse the offer. She dissected Kensington's corporate structure. She leveraged the detailed reports she had studied in secret for years, pointing out the competitors' over-leveraged tech division and their reliance on a single, volatile market in Eastern Europe. "We will not decline the offer outright," Rebecca concluded, her voice unwavering. "We will make a counterbid. Not for their hotel portfolio, but for their entire tech division. They are bleeding capital there, and it threatens their core business." The room was stunned. Harold Envernales gripped the arms of his chair. "A counterbid? On a competitor that's currently attacking us? Rebecca, that is Richard-level aggression." "It is leverage," Rebecca corrected. "Kensington's board will not risk a liquidity crunch in their weakest division to fuel this hotel raid. We are not just defending. We are signaling that Vaughan Global is not just stable. It is predatory when necessary. David, initiate contact with their chief legal officer. Let them know we're buying their debt by the end of the week." The board, initially skeptical, saw the genius in her move. It was audacious, unexpected, and addressed the root cause of Kensington's vulnerability. It was the strategic move of a true leader, not a mere caretaker. The final fate of Marcos. As Rebecca navigated the Kensington crisis with the surgical precision of a seasoned CEO, the final inevitable threads of Marcos's narrative were being neatly tied. Marcos, now isolated in his penthouse apartment, had chosen to fight. He instructed his lawyer, Jamie Barrington, to file suit contesting the validity of the 50-to-1 trust, claiming it was an outdated, manipulative agreement designed to control him. However, three factors weighed against him. The evidence. The forensic audit detailing his $43 million asset transfer was undeniable. The witness. David Chen, the chief legal officer, stood firmly on the side of the company. The intention. Eleanor, his own mother, provided sworn testimony that the trust's intent was to prevent the very type of financial malpractice Marcos had committed. The divorce proceedings and the trust challenge were heard in the same closed-door session. The day after Rebecca's successful counterbid against Kensington, David Chen presented her with a final, confidential settlement. "Marcos has capitulated, Rebecca," David said, his tone grim. "We've recovered 98% of the diverted assets. The board's threat of criminal charges was enough." Rebecca didn't smile. She looked genuinely tired. "And the final terms? He accepts the divorce and the validity of the legacy trust. He forfeits all further claims to Vaughn Global, including all future dividends and executive bonuses. He retains his pre-marriage assets, including the Aspen House, but is barred from ever working in any sector related to hospitality or finance for any of Vaughn Global's competitors." "And the reason for his departure?" Rebecca asked. "As per the agreement, resignation due to personal health concerns, to focus on philanthropic endeavors and family life." A lie, but one that preserves the Vaughn name. Rebecca nodded, signing the document without hesitation. "It is over. Almost," David said. "Marcos requested one final thing. He wants a private meeting with you before he leaves the city for good. He says he needs to understand why." The last conversation, Rebecca agreed to meet him 1 week later, not in the corporate office, but in the tranquil garden of the Vaughn estate, the historical property that had been in the family for a century. Marcus arrived, looking older, his expensive clothes hanging a little loosely. The confident swagger was gone. "I need to know, Rebecca," he demanded, his voice hollow. "Why now? Why did you wait until Vanessa was pregnant? We could have done this quietly 5 years ago. Did you want to humiliate me?" Rebecca looked at him, her gaze clear and pitying. "You still don't understand, Marcus. This was never about you or humiliation. It was about stewardship." "Stewardship of what? Your ego?" "The company," Rebecca said simply. "For 15 years, I managed you. You were vain, but you were predictable. You brought us valuable visibility and kept the firm growing. I was content to manage the 57% in the background, knowing the children had a stable inheritance. I was your silent partner. And Vanessa? Vanessa was your first sign of real recklessness. She was a risk to the marriage, which was unfortunate, but forgivable. The $43 million asset transfer? That was a risk to the entire company. That was a betrayal of your father's legacy and the future of your children. You crossed a line you couldn't uncross." Marcus paused, staring at the perfectly manicured lawn. "If you had such ambition, why didn't you just take over years ago?" "Because the company wasn't ready for a female leader 15 years ago," Rebecca said calmly. "And neither was I. You were the lightning rod, Marcus. You took all the attention. I needed time to learn every division without the scrutiny you faced. I learned to run this empire by watching you almost destroy it. Vanessa's pregnancy simply told me the clock was ticking, and your self-interest was becoming a danger." She stood up, signifying the end of the conversation. "You asked why now? Because tonight I am strong enough, the board is aligned, and the company is safe. I acted when the cost of my inaction became higher than the cost of my intervention." Marcus looked defeated. He nodded slowly. "Richard was a genius. He knew. He didn't trust me." "He trusted me to manage you," Rebecca corrected gently. "And now, I have to manage the company. Goodbye, Marcus." Marcus turned and walked away, not toward the hotel, but toward a waiting black car. He didn't look back. The new dawn. Rebecca returned to the 58th floor of the Zenith Grand Hotel. The board had unanimously approved her counterbid for Kensington's tech division. The company was stronger, more diversified, and led with clear, ethical purpose. As she stood in the newly renovated Legacy Suite, overlooking the city, her phone chimed. It was David Chen. "Rebecca, Vanessa just landed in Hong Kong. She's checking in with the team. She wanted me to let you know. It's a boy." A true, unburdened smile finally spread across Rebecca's face. She looked at the city, the empire she had quietly saved, and now openly led, feeling the responsibility settle firmly, not heavily, on her shoulders. The legacy was secure, the threat was neutralized, and a new life, a new heir, had just arrived, ready to be welcomed into the newly defined Vaughn global family. She lifted her sapphire ring, Eleanor's symbolic transfer of authority, and whispered, "Welcome to the family, little one. The work begins now." Did Rebecca make the right choice by waiting so long? Or should she have acted sooner? What do you predict will be the biggest challenge for the new CEO, Rebecca Vaughn? Let us know in the comments, and remember to like and subscribe for the next chapter of the Vaughn legacy.